That's fine.
Different question. Do you have experience with Kundalini? And can you say what it really is? I just have an idea about
Right, the question has to do with Kundalini experience. Now, people all over the world have experiences like that. So, but most of them are not familiar in lots of other cultures about that kind of an experience. So we'll start off with the typical understanding as it comes from India. The basic understanding in India, and of course, there are different teachers, so I'm giving you a generalization, is that there is great powerful energy coiled at the base of the spine like a snake. This is an energy of creativity. This is an energy of great psychic powers and abilities, an energy for contact with the gods. And if you can only learn how to release this coiled energy and learn how to guide it up through certain channels, kind of a male and female channel called Ida and Pingala that go up through the spine and out the top of the head, if you do that properly, you'll have all of these fantastic abilities. Okay? So there were a lot of mainly yogic practices that were designed to, it's usually called raise the Kundalini. When this got translated to the West, there were a lot of problems because one of the characteristics of Westerners is their impatience. And so most Westerners didn't want to do the study or the practices that were designed to make this happen properly and did everything they could to try and make it happen faster. Okay? Now, that's the general story. Now, what's actually happening here? Let's look at it from a different point of view. If we look at these things from a Hawaiian point of view, in a Hawaiian point of view, we understand that the body is capable of building up tension, and sometimes great tension, in different parts of the body. And one of the areas of the body that's part of what in Hawaiian is called the four corners, which consists of the shoulders and the hips. These are two very important areas in healing work where the tension has to be released in order for your energy, your life energy to flow. Massage is one of the techniques that was done for that. Hawaiians also had a form of acupressure and certain special sticks with a little curve on the end that were used for that. Lomi sticks, they're called. Lomi means press. Okay, so that's why. And they had other kinds of things that were done. You know, they had their herbal lore, they had psychological techniques, all designed to relieve the tension. Well, in some parts of the world where sexuality is highly suppressed, a tremendous amount of tension builds up in the pelvic area, in the hip area. And this is what the cause of a lot of the problems with Westerners trying this technique, because they might do practices that will release the tension, and there is a definite feeling of flow, very powerful when that's released. But the problem is, if you haven't prepared the body, you have other areas of tension. One of the major ones, as that stuff tries to find an outlet and move, is right across the diaphragm, the area of the solar plexus. There's this real flat muscle that is used subconsciously in many, many people to suppress emotions from the lower part of the body. This can include anger, not just sex, but all kinds of emotions that people don't want to feel. Well, if that pelvic energy, Kundalini is just another word for the energy, starts to flow upward and it's blocked, and it's trying to move and that's trying to block it, that can cause a great deal of discomfort. Same thing happens when it gets up, moving through the chest area, and the same thing happens when it gets up through the head area. I had a personal experience. I thought I was all prepared, and I was doing a particular practice to release and get this energy flowing, and then one evening at home, it started, and it began flowing, But when it reached my head, there was some part of me that decided this wasn't such a good idea and tried to clamp down on it. And the only way I can describe the experience is that I was having agony and ecstasy in the same time. Okay? Very, very weird experience. Okay? But see, with that release comes, because it's such a release and there's that movement involved with it, there comes this feeling, this ecstatic feeling of joy, bliss, orgasm. Different people have to describe it in different ways, but you can feel it all over different parts of your body. What typically happens when it really does flow, and this is, again, every people in every culture, is that there's this fantastic feeling at first, and then it develops into a more comfortable feeling of great well-being until you start thinking the thoughts and practicing the behavior that builds up tension again. Okay? Left by itself, it's a continual flow and a continual feeling of well-being. Well, the Hawaiians sought after this kind of thing too, and they had things in their lives which would allow this kind of energy to flow freely and made them happy, and when they're happy and helpful and loving. But they also had people who had emotional problems based on their decisions, and so you sometimes had the equivalent of very evil chiefs and people with anger and resentment and that kind of a thing. Much more so than fear. You don't read much at all in the old tales or in the old stories written by Hawaiians about fear as being any kind of a problem. Anger, yes. Okay. So you had times where some chief usually, sometimes a commoner, but most often a chief would behave in such a way that there would be rebellion against his behavior. Okay? But it wasn't really common. Even war was seldom done out of anger. Okay.